I was sitting in my work truck behind a dead laundromat in Millfield, Ohio, watching my wife hold another man in the rain. That was the moment I thought my marriage ended. The heater in my truck clicked and blew air that smelled like dust, old coffee, and machine oil. My hands were wrapped around the steering wheel so tightly, my knuckles looked strange in the dashboard light. Across the street, under a porch bulb that kept flickering like it was tired of staying alive, Laura stepped out of a second-floor apartment wearing the black coat she usually saved for church and funerals. She had told me she was at work. A man followed her down the stairs. He was thin, hunched into a gray knit cap, with a beard that made his face look older than it probably was. I couldn't hear what they said. I only saw Laura turn toward him and let him fold his arms around her. Not a quick hug, not polite. She held on. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. Laura, still at work, don't wait up. I stared at those 5 words while rain dragged crooked lines down my windshield. Then I looked at the spare key to her car lying on my passenger seat, the one with our son's little Cleveland Browns keychain on it, and I did something I still don't like admitting. I got out, crossed the street, and opened my wife's trunk. Under an old picnic blanket, I found a locked gray metal box. Back then, I thought I had found proof of an affair. What I had really found was the last door of a secret my wife had been carrying from me for 6 months. My name is Ethan Ward. I was 38 that winter, old enough to know better than to confuse fear with evidence, but apparently not old enough to stop myself from doing it. I fixed heating and cooling systems for a living. Furnaces in January, air conditioners in July, rooftop units on strip malls, basement boilers, walk-in freezer compressors behind restaurants where the floor always felt greasy no matter how clean it looked. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest. I liked knowing that when I left a house, somebody's kid would sleep warm that night. Laura was 36 and worked as an assistant manager at Henley's Market, the grocery store on Route 9 where half the town bought milk, lottery tickets, and rotisserie chicken that had been sitting too long under the lamps. She knew everyone by name. She could calm down an angry customer with one raised eyebrow and still remember to text me that we needed detergent. We had one son, Miles, 8 years old, all elbows, questions, and cereal crumbs. He loved football, dinosaurs, and taking apart things I told him not to touch. Our house was small, yellow, and still mostly owned by the bank. The kitchen table had scratches from one of Miles's school projects, where he decided glue needed extra pressure. The washing machine knocked like it was trying to escape the laundry room. The refrigerator was covered with coupons, spelling tests, dentist reminders, and one crooked picture of the 3 of us at Lake Erie, all squinting into the wind. That was our life. Not perfect, not easy. But real. Laura kept it moving. She packed Miles's lunch when I had early calls. She left leftovers in the microwave with sticky notes on top. Don't forget to eat something green, even if it's pickles. I filled her gas tank when it got below a quarter. I replaced her wiper blades before she noticed they were bad. We didn't say I love you in movie speeches. We said it by putting the good towel in the bathroom before the other person showered. The only locked room in our marriage was my brother Caleb. Caleb was 3 years younger than me. Growing up, he was the funny one, the reckless one, the one who could talk his way out of anything until he couldn't. After a knee injury in his 20s, pills became excuses. Excuses became lies, and lies became the only language he spoke fluently. He stole from our mother. He borrowed money from me and disappeared. He pawned things that weren't his. He missed birthdays, Christmases, and finally almost missed our mother's funeral. He showed up late that day, shaking, eyes glassy, wearing a wrinkled suit that smelled like rain and cigarettes. He cried too loudly at the casket, and then asked me for gas money in the parking lot. That was the last time I saw him. A few weeks later, Laura asked gently, "What would you do if he really wanted to apologize someday?" I was repairing the loose handle on the pantry door. I remember not looking up. Then he can apologize to someone who still cares. Laura went quiet after that. I told myself she understood. What I didn't understand was that sometimes silence isn't agreement. Sometimes it is somebody deciding you aren't ready to hear the truth. The first strange thing happened on a Sunday night in October. Miles had gone to bed after negotiating for 12 more minutes of screen time and losing. I came into the kitchen to get water and found Laura standing by the back door with her phone pressed to her ear. Her shoulders were tight. When she saw me, she ended the call so fast her finger slipped on the screen. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said too quickly. "Work. Denise might need me to cover some nights this week." I nodded because that was normal enough. At Henley's, somebody was always calling off, switching shifts, or getting sick right before inventory. But that week turned into 2 weeks. Then a month. Laura started picking up more late shifts. She came home after midnight, moving carefully through the house like every floorboard might accuse her. Sometimes I heard her take off her shoes in the mudroom and just stand there. Once I found her sitting in her car in the driveway at 1:14 in the morning, both hands on the wheel, head bowed. I opened the front door and stepped onto the porch. She looked up, wiped her face, and gave me a smile that didn't reach anything. Long night, I asked. Just heavy, she said. I wanted to ask what that meant. Instead, I stepped aside and let her come in. That was mistake number one. Not because I trusted her. Trust wasn't the mistake. The mistake was feeling something tighten in me and pretending it hadn't. A few days later, I found a gas station receipt in the pocket of her coat while looking for the car insurance card. It was from a place in Millfield, 45 minutes away. Date stamped Wednesday, 10:38 p.m. She had told me she was closing at Henley's that night. I stood in the hallway with that damp, crumpled little rectangle of paper in my hand while the washing machine thumped behind me. I could hear Laura upstairs reading to Miles, doing the dragon voice he loved. I folded the receipt carefully and put it back exactly where I found it. After that, I noticed everything. Cash withdrawals from our checking account. $80, $120, $60. Not enough to scream emergency, but enough to whisper. Her phone started spending more time face down. She changed her passcode, something we had never cared about before. When I walked into a room, her thumb sometimes moved across the screen just a little too fast. One morning at breakfast, Miles looked at her and said, "Mom, how come you keep falling asleep on the couch?" Laura laughed and ruffled his hair. "Because your mom is ancient. You're only 36, he said, offended on her behalf. Exactly, ancient. I smiled because I was supposed to. But I watched the way she held her coffee with both hands like she needed the warmth to keep from shaking. The first message I saw was an accident. At least, that's what I told myself. Laura came home late, kissed the top of my head, and went upstairs to shower. Her phone was on the kitchen table. I was standing barefoot on the cold tile, pouring water from the sink, when the screen lit up unknown number. He asked about you again. I told him not yet. That one line sat there glowing in the dark kitchen. He not yet. My stomach dropped so hard I had to grip the edge of the counter. The shower ran upstairs. The house was quiet except for the pipes in the wall and Miles's white noise machine humming through the ceiling. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't have to. The damage was already done. Laura came down in sweatpants, her wet hair twisted in a towel. "You okay?" she asked. I looked at her face, soft and tired, and wondered how a person could look like home while standing in the middle of a lie. "Yeah," I said. "Just getting water." She studied me for a second, then nodded. The next morning, she wrote inventory on the calendar in red marker. I stared at that word while putting my work boots on. At lunch, sitting in my truck outside a customer's house while sleet tapped the windshield, I called Henley's Market. "Hey," I said when a young cashier answered. "Is Laura Ward there? It's her husband. I need to ask her something." "Oh," the girl said. I think she switched with Denise. She's not here today." I thanked her and hung up. For a while, I just sat there with my sandwich unwrapped in my lap. Turkey mustard, the bread smashed flat from my cooler. I couldn't eat it. That night, I found an envelope under the liner in Laura's dresser drawer. I'm not proud of that either. There are moments in life when you can hear your better self telling you to stop, and you keep going anyway because pain has started making decisions for you. Inside the envelope was cash and an address in Millfield written on the back of an old grocery list. No name, no explanation, just an address the next Thursday. I told my boss my back was acting up and took the afternoon off. I parked behind a closed diner with a for lease sign in the window and waited until Laura's blue Corolla passed through town. Then I followed at a distance, feeling like some cheap version of a man I never wanted to become. Millfield was the kind of place people drove through without deciding to. A laundromat with 2 broken neon letters. A pawn shop. A church with a sign that said, "Grace is not a theory." The apartment building sat above a row of empty storefronts, brick darkened by years of rain and exhaust. Laura parked behind it. She carried 2 paper grocery bags up the stairs. A man opened the door before she knocked. I couldn't see his face clearly from where I sat, only the gray cap, the narrow shoulders. The way he leaned against the frame like standing took effort. Laura stepped inside. I waited 56 minutes. I know because I watched every one of them on the dashboard clock. When she came out, her eyes were red. The man followed her onto the landing and put one hand on her shoulder. She didn't pull away. She reached up and covered his hand with hers for 1 second. That was all. 1 second can ruin a person if it lands in the right place. I drove away before I did something stupid. Or maybe following her had already been the stupid thing. At dinner, Miles told a story about a kid in his class who claimed his uncle had a pet alligator. Laura cut his chicken into smaller pieces and laughed in all the right places. I looked at her hands and thought, those hands were on him. "Dad," Miles said. I blinked. "What, buddy? You're stabbing your potatoes." I looked down. My fork had mashed them into a gray pile. "Long day?" I said. Laura glanced at me, but I looked away first. I started keeping a notebook in my toolbox. Dates, times, withdrawals, places. A grown man tracking his wife's movements in a little black book dusted with metal shavings and furnace soot. Every new line felt like evidence and shame at the same time. I wanted to ask her. I wanted to hear the truth. But more than that, I was terrified she would give it to me. The night everything broke open, she said she had to help with inventory again. Miles was at a sleepover down the street, which should have felt like a gift. Instead, the house felt too hollow. Laura came downstairs in jeans and a sweater, kissed my cheek, and told me not to wait up. "Drive safe," I said. She paused at the door, maybe hearing something in my voice. "I will." After she left, I stood in the living room for 10 full minutes. The refrigerator kicked on. The washer knocked once in the laundry room. I could see both our reflections in the dark TV from earlier, sitting side by side on the couch, pretending. Then I picked up the spare key. Her car was still in the driveway because she had taken my truck earlier that week and forgotten to switch the keys back. I opened the trunk under the weak glow of the motion light. The old picnic blanket was there, the one we used at the lake, still holding little pieces of dry grass in the folds. Under it was the gray metal box. It had a 3-number combination lock. I tried Miles's birthday. Nothing. Our anniversary. Nothing then. With a sickness I couldn't explain, I tried the date my mother died. The lock clicked open. I actually stepped back for a moment. I didn't lift the lid. I just stood there in the cold, listening to my own breathing, knowing there are doors you can't close once you open them. Inside were papers, a short-term lease agreement, medical bills, a folded clinic schedule, an old photograph of me at 22 standing next to Caleb outside my mother's house, both of us squinting into the sun. At the bottom, wrapped in a clean dish towel, was my stepfather's pocket watch. I knew that watch. It had a silver case with a dent near the hinge and a chain my mother used to polish with a soft cloth. After my stepfather died, she kept it in her dresser. Caleb stole it during one of his worst months, and I had always believed he sold it for pills. Seeing it there in my wife's trunk felt like being betrayed by the past and present at the same time. There was also an envelope with my name on it. For Ethan. When he's ready. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Behind me, tires crunched on the driveway. I turned and saw Laura walking fast from the sidewalk. She had forgotten her employee badge. I saw it clipped to the strap of her purse. Her face went pale when she saw the open trunk, the box, the watch in my hand. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she said very quietly, "Ethan, please don't do this tonight." That sentence did more damage than any confession could have. "Don't do what?" I asked. "Find out." She closed her eyes. I carried the box into the house and set it on the kitchen table. The motion light went off outside, and the windows turned black. We waited until Miles's babysitter texted that he was asleep. Then I turned my phone face down because I didn't trust what my hands might do. "How long?" I asked. Laura stood across from me, still wearing her coat. "Ethan, how long?" She looked at the box like it was something alive. "It's not what you think." I laughed once. It came out ugly. "Do you know how many people have said that right before admitting it was exactly what someone thought?" Her eyes filled. "I should have told you. About the apartment, the money, the man in Millfield? The fact that you're telling me you're at work while you're somewhere else?" She didn't deny any of it. That was the part that felt like a knife being turned slowly. "Who is he?" I asked. She put one hand on the back of the chair. "Someone who needed help." "Do you love him?" The question hung in the kitchen. The coffee in my mug had gone cold hours ago, but I picked it up anyway just to have something in my hand. Laura didn't answer fast enough. I set the mug down too hard. Coffee jumped over the rim and spread across the table. "Unbelievable," I said. "No," she said, voice breaking. "Ethan, no. I was trying to protect you. People only say that when they've already done the damage." Her phone buzzed on the table. We both looked. She moved for it, but I was closer. I grabbed it before she could stop me. The screen lit up with a message from a number saved only as R. "He's asking for Ethan." "I don't think we have much time." My chest tightened. "Oh, now he's asking for me?" I said. "Is that supposed to mean something?" Laura's face changed. Fear came over it, real fear, not guilt. But I was too far gone to recognize the difference. "Give me the phone," she said. "No. I want to know why my wife has been lying to me for 6 months. Because every time his name came up, you turned into someone I couldn't reach." "Whose name?" She swallowed. And just like that, I knew, or thought I did. I looked at the photograph in the box. Me and Caleb. The watch. The date of my mother's death as the lock code. My wife standing in front of me with tears in her eyes. "You brought Caleb into this," I said. "You used his name because you knew it would hurt me. That's lower than anything he ever did." Laura went still, not angry, not defensive. Just still, like I had slapped something out of her that she needed to stand. For the first time that night, she stopped trying to explain. She took her phone from my hand, put on her coat, and picked up her keys. "Then come with me," she said. I stared at her. "Come with me," she repeated. "Hate me after, but come with me first." The drive out to Millfield felt longer than 45 minutes. Laura kept both hands on the wheel. I sat in the passenger seat, staring at the dark fields, the gas stations, the occasional porch light on houses set far back from the road. She didn't ask me to speak. I didn't know what I would have said anyway. When we pulled behind the old apartment building, rain had started again, light and cold. The laundromat sign flickered. One window on the second floor glowed yellow. Laura led me upstairs. At the door, she knocked twice, then once. I hated that she had a rhythm for it. The door opened. The man in the gray cap stood there, thinner than he had looked from across the street. His beard was patchy. His skin had a grayness to it that made the whites of his eyes stand out. He wore a faded sweatshirt, and around his wrist was a hospital band. He looked at Laura first, then he looked at me. I knew him before my mind let me know him. "Ethan," Caleb said. My brother's voice was rougher, smaller somehow, but it was his. I didn't move. The apartment behind him smelled like canned soup, old smoke, and antiseptic wipes. A twin mattress sat against one wall with a folded blanket at the foot. On the table were prescription bottles, bananas, a loaf of bread, and a stack of forms. A small calendar was taped to the refrigerator with clinic appointments circled in blue. Nothing about the room looked like romance. Everything about it looked like survival. Caleb stepped back. "You don't have to come in." Laura looked at me. But she didn't touch my arm. I walked inside because my legs moved before I decided. The room was too warm. A portable heater hummed near the wall, making a rattling sound every few seconds. Caleb saw me notice it and gave a weak half smile. "Figured you'd hate that," he said. I didn't laugh. Laura set the grocery bag she had brought onto the counter. Soup cans, crackers, a bottle of over-the-counter pain medicine, instant oatmeal. The ordinary kindness of it made me feel worse. "What is this?" I asked, though I already knew it wasn't what I had believed. Caleb lowered himself into a chair carefully, like his bones had to negotiate with the rest of him. "6 months ago, I called Laura," he said. "Not you. I knew you'd hang up." "You were right," he nodded. "Yeah." Laura took off her coat and folded it over the back of a chair. Something she did at home every day. Seeing that motion in this room made my throat tighten. "He was in a recovery housing program at first," she said. "He'd been clean 8 months when he called. 14 months now." Caleb looked down at his hands. 14 months and 9 days. "Not that I'm counting." His attempt at a joke died in the air. Laura continued. "He got work washing dishes at diner downstairs. Then it closed. He started getting sick. Really sick. The clinic thinks his kidneys were damaged from years of everything. He didn't ask for money, Ethan. He asked if I thought you would ever take the watch back." I looked at him then. Caleb's eyes were wet, but he didn't let the tears fall. "I never sold it," he said. "I tried. 3 times. Couldn't do it. I kept telling myself I'd return it after I got clean. But then Mom died. And then you looked at me in that parking lot like I was already gone. You asked me for gas money at her funeral. I know. You smelled like you'd slept under a bridge. I know. You stole from her while she was sick." His face crumpled, but he nodded. "I know." The anger came back because it knew the way. "Then what do you want from me?" Caleb reached toward the table, picked up a plastic hospital cup, then set it down without drinking. "Nothing," he said. "Not money. Not a place to stay. Not forgiveness if you don't have it. I came back because Mom's watch belongs with you." The room went quiet except for the heater. Laura spoke softly. "Boss, the message you saw. He asked about you again." That was Caleb asking if you still hated him. I said not yet because I didn't know how to tell you without hurting you worse. I looked at the floor. "The cash," I asked. "My cash tips when I had them," Caleb said. "Then Laura helped when I got behind. Groceries, medicine, a couple weeks' rent. I'm paying her back." "He is," Laura said. "The gas station? Clinic appointments," she said. "Most of them are over here because it's tied to the program." The smell of smoke. Caleb raised one hand slightly. "Guy downstairs smokes like a chimney. I'm trying not to. Badly some days." "And the lock code?" I asked. Laura looked at Caleb. He answered. "The day Mom died was the day I understood there are some things you don't get another chance to fix. I used it so I wouldn't forget why I was doing this." I wanted to hate that answer. I wanted it to sound manipulative. Instead, it sounded like a man holding on to one hard truth because it was the only structure he had left. I turned away from both of them and walked into the hallway. The stairwell smelled like damp concrete. I put my hand on the metal railing. It was cold enough to hurt. Downstairs, a dryer thumped in the laundromat with somebody's clothes going in circles behind fogged glass. Laura came out after a minute. She didn't apologize right away. She didn't touch me. "I should have told you," she said. "Yes," I said. "But you were so angry whenever his name came up." I didn't know how to get past that without you shutting the door before I finished the first sentence. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say she should have tried harder, trusted me more, respected our marriage enough to tell the truth. Some of that was fair. But then I remembered every time she had said Caleb's name and I had walked out of the room. Every time she had asked a careful question and I had answered with a wall. Every time my pain had announced itself as certainty. My mother's voice came back to me then. From one of her better days near the end, when she sat in her recliner with a blanket over her knees and watched Caleb's old baseball videos on her tablet. "Don't let the worst thing someone did become the only thing you remember about them," she had said. I told her some things were bad enough. She had looked at me sadly and said, "Maybe, but be careful." That kind of remembering can turn you hard in places you still need soft. At the time, I thought she was defending him. In that hallway, I wondered if she had been warning me. I followed you, I said. Laura looked at me. I called your work. I looked through your dresser. I opened your trunk. I made a little notebook like some paranoid idiot. My throat tightened. I thought you were cheating on me. She closed her eyes for a second, and I saw the hurt land. I know, she whispered.
I'm sorry.
Her mouth trembled. She nodded once, but it wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Just acknowledgement. Sometimes that is the most a person can give you in the middle of a wound. I'm sorry too, she said. I should never have carried it alone. We stood there with the apartment door behind us and the rain ticking against the stairwell window. After a while, I went back inside. Caleb looked up like he expected me to leave. I sat in the chair across from him. The chair had one short leg and rocked slightly under my weight. I didn't know how to forgive him. I didn't know if I wanted to. I only knew that I had spent years rehearsing speeches for a man who now looked too tired to survive them, so I asked the only question I could. How long have you been clean? His eyes filled again. 14 months, he said. 9 days. I nodded. The heater rattled. You should let me look at that, I said. Caleb let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Of course that's what you say. It sounds like the fan housing is loose. Yeah, well, I've been too busy falling apart to fix the heater. Laura made a sound behind me, halfway between crying and laughing. I didn't hug my brother that night. I didn't tell him everything was okay. It wasn't. There are hurts that don't become smaller just because someone explains them, but I stayed for 20 more minutes. I looked at his clinic papers. I gave him the number of a nonprofit that helped with utility bills because one of my customers volunteered there. I tightened 2 screws on the heater casing with a butter knife because that was all he had. On the ride home, Laura and I sat in the car in our own driveway for a long time after she turned off the engine. The motor ticked as it cooled. Miles's backpack was in the back seat, one strap hanging open, a library book sticking out. The porch light made the rain on the windshield shine like broken glass. I don't know how we fix this, I said. Laura rubbed her thumb over her wedding ring, slipped it halfway off, then pushed it back into place. We start by not hiding the hard things, she said. I looked at the house we had built out of coupons, overtime, secondhand furniture, and 1,000 ordinary acts of care. I don't want to become the kind of man who keeps score in secret. Then don't, she said. Not harshly, just tired, I nodded. I don't want to be the kind of wife who decides what truth you can handle, she added. We sat with that too. The next morning, Miles came home from the sleepover wearing mismatched socks and talking so fast neither of us understood the story. Laura made pancakes. I burned the first 2 because I kept looking at her instead of the pan. She caught me staring. What, she asked. Nothing, Ethan. I put the spatula down. I'm just here. She looked at me for a second, then nodded. Okay, it wasn't romantic, it wasn't solved, but it was honest, and after months of guessing, honesty felt almost too bright to look at. Over the next few weeks, life became strange in quiet ways. Caleb started dialysis consultations. Some days he answered my texts, some days he didn't. I learned not to take every silence as betrayal. That was harder than I expected. Laura and I went to counseling at a small office above a dentist near the square. The therapist had a plant that looked half dead and a clock that ticked too loudly. I admitted out loud that I had confused Laura's secrecy with my old fear of being made a fool of. Laura admitted she had used my anger as a reason to avoid a conversation she was afraid to have. Nobody came out looking perfect, that helped. One Saturday in December, I drove Caleb to our mother's grave. Laura came with us but stayed near the car, holding 2 paper cups of gas station coffee, giving us space. The cemetery was brown and quiet, with dry leaves pressed flat into the grass. Caleb moved slowly, hands in his coat pockets, shoulders curled against the wind. At the headstone, he took out the pocket watch. For a while, he just held it. She used to wind it every Sunday, he said. I know, I stole it on a Tuesday. I looked at him. He swallowed. I remember because she had made chili. She asked if I wanted some before I left. I said no. I already had it in my pocket. There was no defense in his voice. No excuse. Just a man finally willing to stand next to the thing he had done. He placed the watch on the headstone. I'm sorry, he said, looking at my mother's name. For all of it. For making you tired. For making Ethan carry what I wouldn't, for coming back too late. The wind moved through the bare trees. Then he picked up the watch and handed it to me. I didn't take it right away. I don't know how to do this, I said. Caleb's mouth twitched. Me neither. For some reason, that made us both laugh. Not much, not happily. But enough that the air changed. I took the watch. Afterward, I drove him back to the apartment. Laura waited downstairs while I went up with him. The heater was still making that same rattle, worse now. This time I had tools. Caleb sat on the edge of the mattress while I took the casing off. You always fix things when you were mad, he said. I'm not mad. He gave me a look. I'm not only mad, I corrected. Fair. I tightened the fan housing, cleaned out the dust, and showed him how to reset it if it started again. It took 12 minutes. It felt like the closest thing to a prayer I knew how to offer. When I came downstairs, Laura was leaning against the car with the coffees. She handed one to me. "Did you fix it?" she asked. "Mostly." She smiled faintly. "That sounds like us. Months past not clean movie months where everyone heals in a montage. Real months." Caleb had good days and bad ones. Sometimes he sounded almost like the brother who used to make me laugh so hard milk came out of my nose when we were kids. Other days he was quiet and ashamed and hard to reach. Laura and I rebuilt slowly. I stopped checking the room when her phone buzzed. She stopped protecting me from conversations I didn't want. When something hurt, we tried to say it before it became a locked box. I kept the pocket watch in the bowl by the door for a while, next to my keys. Every morning I saw it before work. At first it made me angry. Then it made me sad. Eventually it became just what it was. An old watch with a dent near the hinge, heavy in the hand, still capable of ticking after years in the dark. One evening in spring, Miles picked it up while I was fixing the loose pantry handle again. "Whose is this?" he asked. Laura was at the stove, stirring soup. She looked over her shoulder at me. I could have given the simple answer. "Your grandfather's. Your grandmother's. Mine." Instead, I dried my hands on a towel and sat beside my sons at the scratched kitchen table. "It belonged to someone who made mistakes," I said, "and someone who came back." Miles considered this with the seriousness of an 8-year-old deciding whether a thing is fair. "Can mistakes come back too?" I looked at Laura. She was watching me, eyes soft but careful. We were still learning how not to flinch. "Sometimes," I said, "but so can people." Miles held the watch to his ear. "It's still ticking," he said. I listened. He was right. For a long time, I thought the truth would destroy my home. But the truth only broke what should have broken sooner, the silence.